Welcome to this week's edition of the First Reading, where I'll go over the first reading of Daily Mass this week because it gives us a certain section, it talks about a certain section of salvation history. So this week's section of salvation history is still from the letter to the Hebrews, but we take a break from that both on Monday and on Tuesday because on Monday we celebrate the feast of the conversion of St. Paul. So the first reading on that day, on Monday, is St. Paul telling the story of his own conversion, how he was a Jew persecuting the Christians, but then when the risen Jesus appeared to him, then he realized that God was calling him to preach Jesus Christ crucified and resurrected to all of the nations of the world. So on Monday we hear St. Paul's conversion story about how Jesus appeared to him, and that's on Monday. On Tuesday, we celebrate the feasts of the bishops Timothy and Titus. So they were disciples of Paul that were eventually left in charge of different Christian communities. Timothy was in charge of the community in Ephesus, and then Titus the community in Crete. And so the first reading talks about Paul reminding Timothy of his own ordination, or he specifically says, Timothy, don't forget or stir into flame the gift of God that you received when I, Paul, imposed my hands on you. So he posed his hands on Timothy, giving him the ability to celebrate and guide the community over in Ephesus. So that's what we celebrate on Tuesday, the feast of St. Timothy and Paul, and the first reading talks about Timothy receiving his commission from St. Paul. On Wednesday, now we go back into the letter to the Hebrews, and in this section it says that we no longer have to offer an offering for reconciliation because that's what Jesus did on the cross. Because his offering was sinless, or offering was for all of the sins of the world, we don't have to offer any more offerings for sin. And in fact, every time we say Mass, we say the exact words of Jesus. We represent Jesus' sacrifice when Jesus said, "Do this in memory of me." That's what we do at every Mass. We are representing the one sacrifice that Jesus made to reconcile us to God. So that's on Wednesday, the letter to the Hebrews, talking about Jesus' perfect offering to God. On Thursday, we hear more from the Hebrews saying specifically that we have the confidence to enter into the heavenly sanctuary that Jesus is residing in now. And so then he tells the congregation, don't stray from the assembly now that you have this faith, now that you have this perseverance. And actually he continues on that message of perseverance on Friday. So on Friday we continue in Hebrews, and he says, although you've all been publicly exposed to abuse and affliction, don't worry, because we're not the ones who drop back and perish, but we are the ones who persevere or preserve our lives. And so he tells the community to continue to persevere on Friday's reading. And then on Saturday, he gives examples of faith to the congregation. So on Friday's reading, Hebrews talks about the example of faith of Abraham, the father of the Jewish people, how by faith he went to where the new land that God was calling him to, that by faith he was able to offer his only son Isaac as a sacrifice to God, that by faith he was able to believe and promise that God would give him a child in the first place. And so that's on Saturday. So that's the first reading for this week. Thanks for watching. I hope it helps put in context the first reading of the Mass so that we can better understand salvation history. Thank you again for watching. God bless.